Hey everybody, it's Mike from the Mike Wagner Show, powered by SoundCloud Studios, brought to you by our official sponsor, the Mike Wagner Show, international warring author Mia Molson's The Missing, available on Amazon, paperback and ebook. Coming soon, Missing 2, Double Suspense, Double the Fun. Check it out on Amazon. Also brought to you by Sweet Psalmist by Serena Wagner, based on the life of Dave, including 30 exquisite paintings and King David Psalms. Amazon.com, keyword Sweet Psalmist Serena Wagner, and also check out the Mike Wagner Show at the MikeWagnerShow.com. 50 podcast platforms, 110 countries. Follow us on Facebook, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, also Apple Music, BitChute, Rumble, LinkedIn, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, TikTok today. Check it out. Here's an amazing author and lifelong storyteller that throughout his 20-year career in law enforcement is in the process as a full-time author. We'll talk more about that. He's been married for 20 years, 3 years as criminal investigator, and 9 years as a sergeant. And he has a new book out, which is Small-Town Mystery and Crime Thriller, which is set in the Catskills of New York. He's a rookie cop working in the shadow of his dead father, a former chief of police, and also stumbles in a cold case that his father began and a modern day murder all tied in. The book is called Our Lady of the Overlook. Live, ladies and gentlemen, Plus Studios from Rockland County, New York, the multi-talented author, lifelong storyteller throughout his 20-year law enforcement career with the book Our Lady of the Overlook, the multi-talented Rodney Carpentier. Rodney, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thanks for joining us today.
Great to be here.
But it's great to have you on board, Rodney. So feel free to talk about your book. You're an author, lifelong storyteller throughout your 20-year law enforcement career. You're in the process of being a full-time author. You've been married for 20 years, 3 as a criminal investigator. You spent 3 years, 9 years as a sergeant. You have a new book, A Small Town Mystery and Crime Thriller, set in the Catskills of New York. It's a rookie cop working in the shadow of his dead father, former chief of police, stumbles on a cold case that his father began. And it's also a modern day murder, which also tied in similar. It's called Our Lady of the Overlook. And before getting on that, Rodney, tell us how you first got started.
First started in what? You did so
No,
many
no,
things there. Um,
no, how you first got started in your career, going the way back beginning, way back, time
okay.
machine, way back.
All right. So you mentioned I've been married for 20. Actually, it'll be 21 years. Probably by the time this gets out to everybody. So we'll just round up at this point. I've been with my wife since I was 16 years old. I am now 43. So if you do the math, that's a very, very long time. We got married in 2004. And that's kind of where it began. We spent our first year of marriage living in Los Angeles, California. After living in New York my entire life, it was quite the culture shock. There's no snow. It rained a lot when we were there, but it was pretty much always sunny, the warmth and all this stuff. And there's a lot more traffic than I anticipated. And I didn't really like California. It wasn't for me. It was so busy and so crowded that we only lasted out there for a year. But during that year, I started applying for jobs. I had a 4 year college degree, but I also learned very quickly probably back then about 450 probably get you a cup of coffee. So I started looking for gainful employment. And one of the things that I started looking into was joining the LAPD. So that was my first experience going through a civil service process, taking a test, doing physical abilities, being examined by a background investigator. I did a polygraph. So I had all these really interesting experiences with that. And then partway through, I just decided this isn't for me. And we moved back to New York. So then I just kind of started things all over again, but my interest had been piqued towards law enforcement. So I started taking civil service tests back here in New York. I got picked up by the New York State Department of Corrections in 2006. I worked for them for just over 2 years, and I got picked up by the sheriff's office in the county where I was working. And I've been there ever since. I'll be closing out 17 years in this September. And during that time, I worked patrol. As you mentioned, I did 3 years as a criminal investigator. Made sergeant. I was a sergeant for the last 9, just shy of 10 years. And as of 2 weeks ago, I just got promoted to lieutenant. So
Congratulations.
thank you. So uh, that's kind of where the career went. And somewhere in there, about 3.5 years ago, I was working a midnight shift, and this idea for a book popped into my head. Just trying to stay awake, trying to stay alert. um, we don't use the Q word, as a lot of law enforcement folks will say. We don't use the Q word, but it was rather uneventful that night. There wasn't a lot of transmissions going over the radio, and I just need to kind of keep myself busy. And this idea popped in my head, and instead of letting it escape and kind of just let it go, I decided that this was the opportunity to maybe start something new and start working my way towards a different point in life.
That's really interesting. And what was that other exact precise moment simply influenced you into what you do in the rest of your career, besides being a midnight shift? And how about that other turning point for you?
Um, the major turning point for me was and why I kind of went down this road was my father passed away about a month before this idea came to me. Um, he had been ill for a while. It it was shocking, but not a surprise when he passed. And um, so when this idea came to me, it was I didn't want to wait anymore, and I wanted to kind of seize life. I was just shy of turning 40 years old at the time, and just kind of realizing how short life was. My dad was barely 62 when he passed. It
Oh,
was
wow.
just after his birthday. He was 62. My mom predeceased him by 6 years. She was 57, and here I am. I was about to turn 40, and you know, I really, God willing, gonna live a lot longer than they ever did. But I also didn't want to waste time anymore, and I didn't want to have this dream, this I guess a newfound dream, and this idea to kind of go, because it was given to me for some reason, and I wanted to pursue it and chase it down and see where it takes me.
And
And
I think that's really great as well, too. And also, you've been doing some writing for quite some time. And who are some of your favorite authors and writers growing up?
so growing up, I always was kind of pushed towards mysteries. I still remember I was 5 or 6 years old. Went to Scholastic Book Fair. I was in first or second grade, and we were looking at books. And they had, I think I still have the book upstairs. It was very thick. It was small, but it was a very thick, very small print book. It had all of Conan Doyle's Sherlock Holmes mysteries. Probably short, yeah, maybe all the short stories. And I picked it up, and I'm like, oh, I really want this. And it wasn't my teacher. It was one of the aides grabbed me, kind of looked at it and said, "Oh, this seems too advanced for you." And I was like, "I'll show you, lady." So I opened it up.
I know
I
how
opened
that goes. Believe me.
and I was I always had a very good grasp of language, and I was capable of reading. So I read a little bit of it to her, and she I don't know if she totally understood it, because it's obviously it's a an older language and an older way of speaking, but she was impressed enough to say, "Okay, I guess I'll let you buy this book." And like I said, I still have it to this day. So I always enjoyed mysteries. I had Hardy Boys mysteries and stuff like that growing up, and then in college, I originally wanted to be a lawyer. But I didn't go to like a pre-law like program. College I went to didn't have that. So I kind of gravitated towards English and being an English major and reading literature and things like that. So at that point, I started getting into really interested in the Lost Generation, Ernest Hemingway, F. Scott Fitzgerald, uh, John Dos Passos, those American authors that were kind of in that post World War One, pre World War II era. I just kind of fell in love with that, and so I guided a lot of my papers towards that. Uh, if you don't tell my professors, I actually had two professors that hated each other. They
Oh,
did they,
no.
they did not get along. But I was taking one class that was, I think it was like American literature, the second part of American Lit 2, which was more kind of the modern stuff, or that period, and also another class where it was um American literature between the wars. So they kind of overlapped. So I wrote the same paper for both of them and
Oh
turned it
my
in.
gosh. Which one did they like better?
I think I got roughly the same grade. I think I got an A- from the American Lit 2 guy, and I think I got a B+ from the other instructor, who he was a um William Faulkner and Ernest Hemingway scholar. Like he had written like big papers. He was very uh kind of uh more of an established person on that, whereas the other American lit teacher was just, he was just kind of an associate professor and, had his passions, but wasn't quite as decorated as the other one. So I got roughly the same grade. So that was good. And it also, didn't require me to write it twice.
I think that's the best part as well. And what are some of your other favorite books growing up?
Um, so again, Hemingway was big. I really enjoyed Sun Also Rises. That was probably my favorite book of his. I've read most of his, and then I started getting into short stories and really liked short literature for a while. Um, and so that's growing up, and then more recently, I found out that there's actually genre, and you can go and just listen, just find mystery books, and I found the the vast um arena that is mystery fiction and all the different kinds of things out there, and that kind of really opened my eyes because I was very snobbish for a while. I was like, if it's not Hemingway or Faulkner, it's not worth reading.
I see. So you're devoted to Hemingway and Faulkner, is that right?
That Robert Penn Warren, I really enjoyed how All the King's Men is set up. That's a very good book. Started reading a little bit more of some of the counterculture stuff from the 60s. Thomas Pynchon wrote a very good book I like called The Crying of Lot 49. I just like the way that those books were structured, but they were also saying a lot of different things also, and you kind of had to build it on all this uh classic literature. You needed to know um the Iliad and the Odyssey, and you needed to know all these very I wouldn't say obscure, but just not what the general public was reading. It was, you had to study this stuff and to really understand where they were coming from when they were writing. And while I understood that stuff, there's also, I've read plenty of poems or books where the text is like a quarter inch, and then the footnotes for that quarter inch are most of the page. And so, you almost got to, look at 10 other things just to understand a sentence. And, I thought that was literature. I thought that was writing. That's the person I wanted to be. But I also didn't have the time, the inclination to go through that at that point, because obviously I was newly married. I was going through a career after I got out of college. Because I graduated in May and I got married in August. So there was no, I needed to go out and work, and I needed to make money, and I needed to, grow up, as my father would say. I was 22 years old, and I needed to go out and do something. I didn't have the luxury of continuing on it for a master's and things like that at that point, because being married and getting my life started was, I kind of put more value on that.
Mhm.
So and then again, switching, years later now, the fact that, you can read for entertainment, and you don't need to have all this depth of knowledge to enjoy a book was another eye-opening experience for me too.
And certainly as well too. And you mentioned about Hemingway, Faulkner, and some of the others. How about F. Scott Fitzgerald?
Oh, I love Fitzgerald. Obviously The Great Gatsby is probably, in my opinion, humble opinion, is, and I guess a lot of other people, is one of the best novels ever written. Especially in the American vein. Um, I enjoyed that. I enjoyed some of his short stories. Did I do? I think I read The Beautiful and the Damned. Um, I'm trying to think back because that kind of all, blends together after a while. I have so many books up on my bookshelf. My wife, when we move up to the Catskills, we're gonna have to eventually, I'm gonna eventually have to trim that library down, I think, and that's gonna be pretty difficult. Um, But no, Fitzgerald was another um big person for me. Basically anyone during that generation. What they were writing about was just so devastating. My senior seminar in college was about utopian literature. And, so we read all the great utopian, Utopia, or what else we do? Um, Trying to remember all the books from that. But basically anything utopian, and then getting into dystopia, talking about 1984, talking about
Oh, Orwell. Yes, yes.
yeah,
Big
get it,
Brother. Uh-huh.
yeah, getting into all that, and kind of looking at that. And so again, my interest being the lost generation and these writers, I formulated my thesis around that. While their stuff certainly wasn't utopian, they were trying to make sense of the dystopia that they had experienced in their life. These were young people. Hemingway, was an ambulance driver during the war, and all his war experiences and all the stuff that he brought out into his literature. And then, where you had Fitzgerald, who I think was in the military, but it wasn't a combatant. And then, and what this meant to them in that generation, right at, that those years right after World War I, and all the political uproars that occurred. And it's interesting to um read these people and put yourself in their time.
Mhm. And I think that's amazing as well, too, how F. Scott Fitzgerald does that. And of course, you put your books through time with Our Lady of the Overlook. We'll talk about that with Rodney Carpentier. But first, listen to The Mike Wagner Show at themikewagnershow.com, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. Look at a professional website without breaking your budget. Sonic Web Studios is the answer. Sonic Web Studios offers fast, affordable custom web designs at below the competition rate. Call today, 1-800-303-3960. It's 1-800-303-3960, or email to support@sonicwebstudios.com. Mention the Mike Wagner Show, get 20% off your first project. Sonic Web Studios, take your image to the next level. Also, time to give official shout out to our official sponsor of the Mike Wagner Show, international warring author Mia Molson-Zia. If you love fast-paced mysteries, you love Missing by Mia Molson-Zia, available on Amazon and paperback and ebook. Missing is fast-paced and intriguing with an unforgettable twist. Takes place in 4 countries, 2 strangers, one target, where truth is illusion and those love be the first go missing. It's available on Amazon and paperback and ebook. Missing by Mia Molson-Zia has garnered great reviews. In Evil Evan endorsed by Howard celebrities, including Jordan Cassie, Forrest Riley, and many others. So grab your copy today for Girls Missing by Mia Molson-Zia, available on Amazon. Coming soon, Missing 2, Double Suspense, Double the Fun. Check it out on Amazon. Also brought to you by Sweet Psalmist by Serena Wagner, based on the life of David, including 30 exquisite paintings and King David's Psalms. The Sweet Psalmist gives a new perspective of David through the Psalms he wrote as the time of shepherd started in complicated yet turbulent relationship with King Saul. It's a story of love, betrayal, repentance, hope, and more. Check out The Sweet Psalmist by Serena Wagner on Amazon. Keyword Sweet Psalmist Serena Wagner. Also, check out The Mike Wagner Show at themikewagnershow.com. 50 podcast platforms, 110 countries. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, TikTok, and more, as well as Spotify, SoundCloud, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Apple Music, BitChute, Rumble, YouTube, and more. Take us with you on any mobile device for great gift ideas. Go to Amazon.com. Check out the Mike Wagner Show podcast. T-shirts, pop sockets, throw pillows, tote bags, hoodies, makes great gifts 24/7. Go to Amazon.com. Check out the Mike Wagner Show podcast. And for more great gift ideas, go to Amazon.com/Mia Molson-Zia. Great books, merchandise, and more. And support the Mike Wagner Show on Anchor FM, PayPal, and the MikeWagnerShow.com. You'll hear the amazing author, lifelong storyteller throughout his 20-year law enforcement career. In the process, is being a full-time author, Rodney Carpentier here in the Mike Wagner Show. And before we talk about book Our Lady of the Overlook, which I found amazing as well, you wrote some experiences with law enforcement, inspiring fiction, everything like that. Who are some of your favorite mystery, crime thriller authors, writers, and crime books as well?
So, my journey with law enforcement, like I said, I was applying to the LAPD over 20 years ago now, back in 2004, 2005. I found a memoir written by a police officer for the NYPD. It is called Blue Blood, and it's by the author Edward Conlon. So he discusses his career from um, when he joined the NYPD in 1995, up through the events of September 11th and kind of the aftermath and his experiences with that and working all sorts of different things. So it was very gritty, and it was very grounded in history of New York City, his family history. His father was an FBI agent. He had a great grandfather who was on the NYPD in the starting in the 19 teens, working through the early 1940s. So that was kind of my my introduction into law enforcement and crime writing. And I guess it's also if you look at I've actually had to buy multiple copies of the book because I broke it multiple times, and
Oh.
because I read it so frequently. So for nonfiction, that was a formative way of making experiences into a tangible format. And then um, another book I really enjoyed that was also nonfiction. It's called The Last Gunfight. I don't remember the author's name, but it was also a way of making history and things tangible, and also turning it into a story. And that that book is all about the gunfight at the OK Corral,
Okay.
and it goes into the history of the Earps and the history of the Clantons and all these things, but it also reads um in my experience almost like a use of force narrative, which it explains why Virgil Earp did what he did on that morning in October of 1881. Sorry, my memory's failing me.
Oh, that's
It,
okay. Somewhere around there.
Yeah, I'm sure their comment section is gonna be blowing me up, telling me it was this date. You didn't know that. So, but it
We'll
was
keep an eye on it. Don't worry about it. We're all human too. So
and obviously, the film versions of Wyatt Earp, in the '90s were big for me. I really enjoyed both Kevin Costner's Wyatt Earp as well as obviously Tombstone featuring Kurt Russell and Sam Elliott, and of course the late great Val Kilmer. But to read this book and to kind of demystify some of why, and looking at the motivations on all sides, and it was great. And like I said, it kind of reminded me of a use of force narrative that I would either write as a regular patrolman, or kind of review as a supervisor. So that was so those two books were very formative in how I wanted to structure my 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 actual fiction. And as soon as I got into wanting to write a mystery, I'm like, well, I need to know what a mystery um sounds like, and what you know how do I want to do this. I knew I could develop my own voice and I could write the story eventually, but I wanted to kind of understand maybe what the market looked like, and to kind of pick up on things. So I've started listening to I'm a big audiobook person, also a big podcast listener. So it's another, you asked about Podmatch earlier before we started recording. Um, I love going on there because I find all these brand new podcasts, and I'll start researching some of the podcasts before I jump on them. So big listener. The the books I started getting into, one of my favorite authors, he's also a podcaster, is Andrew Clavin. He works with the Daily Wire, so I do listen to his political podcast, but his books are fabulous, and they go back to the mid '90s. He was also a screenwriter, so I've seen at least one of the movies he wrote. But he has a series that follows these two detectives that is just fabulous, and the way that he tied those books together in different adventures, but also have an overarching thing, was fantastic. How to structure something like that. And he kind of goes all over the place. I'm actually in the middle of his book from a couple years ago called Werewolf Cop, which is a terrible title, but so far I'm very riveted to it. So he's big. Another writer I really enjoy that I found last year. and he does more of what I call locked room or closed box mysteries. His name is Benjamin Stevenson. He's from Australia, but he's got two books. One's called Everyone in My Family Has Killed Someone,
Oh,
and that takes place. I don't know Australia. It takes place basically at a snowed-in lodge where his family's gathering because his brother, who was convicted of murder, is actually being paroled and getting out, and people start dying, and in the end, he explains how everyone in his family has killed someone. Um, but his the voice of it's a first person narrator, and the voice of that character is amazing, and how he brings that out, and um he breaks the fourth wall. So there's just a style that is awesome. I don't know if I could ever replicate that, but I love that style. And he wrote a sequel called Everyone on This Train is a Suspect. So now you're kind of getting into more Agatha Christie, where you're kind of trapped on a train kind of situation. And that builds off of the first book also. And then he has a third one that was kind of like a Christmas episode. I don't remember when that was called, but that was also very interesting and built. So I've liked how um, series are being built, and I've kind of been sort of studying how that process works also, because uh, I don't know if it's not quite a spoiler, but I do have the second book of the Overlook trilogies coming out at the end of August, and that book is called The Quiet Whispers of the Overlook. So
okay.
that
The
is,
Quiet Whispers of Overlook. Okay. And
yeah.
how'd you come up with Our Lady of the Overlook and the inspiration of the title?
So I wrote this book and I had no idea what to call it. So I was kicking around ideas. My daughter is enrolled in Catholic school, and the school she was going to at the time was called Our Lady of Mercy Academy. So that idea of Our Lady, and knowing that my victims in this book are both female, and kind of this, you know, um just kind of putting this reverence on this cold case. So that idea of Our Lady kind of stuck with me. And when I was writing the Overlook as a setting for the cold case murder and how it's attached to the modern day murder, kind of all it just kind of stuck with me. So it and it looked good. You had a lot of O's on there, so it kind of so it looked good. It looked good in a font. So I was like, I guess that's it. Our Lady of the Overlook. Let's run with it.
And I think that's a really good idea as well, too. When you wrote Our Lady of the Overlook, you talked about a couple of narratives used, like use of force narrative and also the closed box narrative. What narrative did you use when it came to Our Lady of the Overlook?
So what I did was I framed it. Again, a ton of literature. I found that getting into early American literature like Nathaniel Hawthorne or Herman Melville, it seemed like they needed to legitimize their story. So what they did was they kind of grounded it in this, oh, I found a book and this is the story or the journal or things like that. And so what I did was I grounded it by framing it from the point of view of a true crime podcast host, who is gets a little too involved. He opens the book by saying, some people may think that I'm the villain in this story, and the reader will make his determination. By the end of that book, and then by the end of the second book, and as soon as I write it, by the end of the third book. Um, but so that's kind of what I did. It was I framed it as a narrative, um, from this guy's point of view, that he was writing this story and writing this saga. He experienced a lot of this firsthand, and what he didn't experience, he could interview the people who were there and kind of make up this, make up what happened and what the conversations were like. And again, this was very similar to both the nonfiction books, or the nonfiction books that I talked about, both Blue Blood and The Last Gunfight, which take facts and take recorded history, but then also kind of dramatize it a little bit, so it reads a little bit more like we're talking back and forth as opposed to reporting out. So I kind of use that, and the big thing I wanted to do was my main character is named Mike, and there's only one scene in the entire book that's from his point of view. So he's the main character. He's in every scene, but every scene is from somebody else's perspective on him. So you don't really get into Mike's head and what he's thinking. You get into all these other characters' heads and see how they take him in. And it's interesting to see the difference between some of the antagonists, some of the protagonists, some of the female characters who um, think he's, a good looking young man, and some of the characters who, like his mom, who kind of thinks that he's being foolish, and some of his pursuits. So that's kind of where I did kind of on a technical level.
Mhm. And plus, as well, too, you've got some interesting storylines as well, too, with rookie cop working shell of his dead father, former chief of police. There's also the cop's son, former detective, and also some other things discovering as well. Get to that with Rodney Carpentier of Our Lady the Overlook. You listen to The Mike Wagner Show at themikewagnershow.com, powered by SoundCloud Studios. Brought to you by our official sponsor, The Mike Wagner Show, international warring author Mia Molson's Missing. The Sweet Psalmist by Serena Wagner, based the life of King David, including 30 squares of paintings and King David Psalms. Amazon.com, keyword Sweet Psalmist Serena Wagner. We'll be back with author Rodney Carpentier of Our Lady the Overlook after this time out. We're back with author Rodney Carpentier on the Mike Wagner Show with Our Lady of the Overlook. Author, lifelong storyteller throughout his 20-year law enforcement career, getting ready to be a full-time author as well. And it's about a rookie cop working to shove his dead father, former chief of police, stumbles on a cold case. Father began modern-day murder. All ties in, and you got your characters as well. Former detective, cop son rivals, and just a bunch of things going on.
Yes, there's a bunch of things going on. So I kind of took where this takes place in the Catskill Mountains is a real town called Hunter. And one of the things I noticed, again, lived adjacent to this area when I was growing up. Now I live in kind of a busy area downstate, just 30 miles of New York City, where there's a ton of traffic and very multi-ethnic and a lot of different things going on. You go up there and things are just a lot slower, a lot more laid back. And there's rumor mills and people talking, but also there's a lot of things that are just kind of secretive. And so, um, one of the things I really liked about that setting was you could have a cold case homicide that people just forgot about. The people who knew directly about it, moved on, passed on, and and it kind of just left the headlines and nobody thought about it. Especially when, in this case, the cold case, the victim is unknown, the killer is unknown. So there's nobody fighting to keep this story alive and keep it going. And that's where the podcast narrator comes in. His character I created. Um, I don't try to make him slimy, but he is a little slimy. I want to get into his backstory and maybe a future writing, but his name is Tim Figueroa. His show is called Figure It Out with Figgy, and he travels around and immerses himself in these cases. He's not just reading a script or doing some research. He is doing everything. He's a news reporter, but also a podcaster, and he's trying to get into this story. However he finds it, we don't really understand that through reading the book. It's kind of more of the left up to the reader how he kind of gets there. But he wants this story to get out at all costs, and he's willing to um you know do whatever. There's very few boundaries for him, because he's not bound to a news station or a newspaper or having credentials or anything. He is a independent lone gun kind of podcaster going out and trying to figure this stuff out. And so now that he's shining the light on this, it changes the town. And now there's attention on it, and then when this new murder happens, more attention's brought on it. And Mike, as our protagonist and our focus, our the character that we focus on, is kind of torn. He doesn't have a good relationship with his dad. And now this guy comes and wants him to, kind of spill all the dirt about his dad. And he's like, you don't understand. I don't know the man. I can't tell you about him. And the more that Tim pushes on Mike, the more Mike is kind of forced to do something. And that's how he's able to actually make a huge break in the case, the cold case, as he starts investigating this modern day murder that occurs.
Now is this parallel to what's happening? Like the cold case with a modern day murder is like a parallel? Is it similar, or how is it that's like really close to it?
So the elements that are similar are um, first of all, female victim. They were both strangled. Um, the first officer on scene for each of them has the last name Ellis. Mike discovers the more modern crime scene, and Mike's dad, Charlie, was the first officer on scene at the case 40 years ago. And they're both tied to the Overlook. One is found actually out on this Overlook, and the other one, the modern day one, is actually found kind of at the foot of the Overlook as like the parking area. So it just similar elements, and obviously, rookie police officer who doesn't really know what he's doing is, going to start drawing corollaries and trying to figure these things out, even though there are plenty of other people telling him, no, you're wrong. This is, these people couldn't be further from, further, couldn't be more different. That couldn't be further from the truth. And, he perseveres through his theory, and again, is able to make a huge breakthrough about the midpoint of the book. No spoilers.
Right. Yeah. And I think that makes sense as well, too. Of course, father kept something hidden for years. Was it like, let's see, maybe like alcoholism, or is it like maybe other issues, divorce, anything like that? Nothing to do with the murder, but could be like, how do I describe it? Like family matters or anything like that?
So basically, Mike's dad is all about his job. Yes, there is alcohol abuse that's kind of put in there. But the character of Mike's mom, and she's a very strong person, and she basically tries to get Charlie to put his act together, and that's her function in the story. And um, she helps Mike to understand things that he never thought. Mike took for granted a bunch of different things, and he makes a lot of assumptions and draws a lot of conclusions based on his assumptions. And when he actually sits down and talks to his mom, she's able to shine the light and say, "No, your dad was much more um, nuanced than that. He had many different experiences that you never knew about. And again, his father wasn't a very attentive, and very, he was more attuned to his job and wanting to always be at work. And on top of also being haunted by this cold case, he's never able to solve it. He worked it for years and is never able to come to a resolution. And really, at the point where the story begins, Mike's father's been deceased for 7 years, so almost a decade since really the last person that knew anything about it has passed away.
Okay. And how often these murders happen around the Catskills area? Was this like a big event that, this is like a murder, like say, like, once a year, once every 5 years, 10 years, or anything like that? What was like the crime rate around there?
The crime rate is very low. Without having done any real research into it, I don't think um, there's more accidental deaths than there is any kind of crime rate up there. The local police handle it's a big ski area, big hiking area, big camping area. So you have a lot of tourism, and you have a lot of people coming in and coming through. Um, but for the most part, that's what the local police are dealing with. Traffic and fights and domestic disturbances and things like that. You're not really handling a murder up there. So in the context of this fictional town of Hunter, you know, two murders 40 years apart, those are definitely interesting and significant bookends.
Hmm. And of course, we want everybody to figure out what happens in the end. And what do you want readers to get from the book?
I want them to there's a lot of context towards family and differences in generation. Um, and I really focused a lot on creating police officer characters that are realistic. Um, a lot of the people that a lot of the characters in the book are built as amalgamations of different people I actually know, both antagonistic and protagonistic and all that. And these are people I actually know, so they're very real to me. And I kind of want people to kind of take away, police officers are human beings also. They make mistakes. They're not perfect. But also, I wanted to get away from some of the cliches you get. Again, reading and listening to a lot of different um, crime procedurals and things like that. You always have the most of your detectives are alcoholics, divorced, sardonic, and all this stuff. And I have my state police investigator is a suave, immaculately dressed, small Hispanic man, and he's brilliant. And he knows how to rub people the wrong way and get to the real truth of things. Whereas and whereas the rookie is very raw and it's kind of more of a rube.
Okay. And where can we find your book at and what's your website?
All right, so my website is rlcarpentierwriter.com, and my book is available. I guide people towards my website, but I also am available on Amazon, both uh, print, ebook, and on Kindle Unlimited. And at the same time, the pre-orders for the second book, Quiet Whispers of the Overlook, again through my website, and it should be live on Amazon for pre-orders on that. Also, that comes out on August 29th.
Okay, well, certainly check those out. We're here with the amazing author Rodney Carpentier of Our Lady of the Overlook here on the Mike Winter Show. A few more things besides your second book. What else can we expect from you 2025 and beyond?
So, second book comes out in a month. I want to get the third book out by, I'm hoping, spring. Trying because I'm trying to work out the whole marketing things and trying to strike while the iron is hot. But other than that, I actually have my own nonfiction book that I'm working on, um, based on the 1981 Brinks robbery that occurred here in Rockland County and its effect on the community here where I live. A lot of those people are still here, and are I want to get their story before that generation passes on. So that is nonfiction work that I'm working on, and I have a bunch of different ideas that have been percolating for a very long time. And now that I know I want to be a mystery writer, I'm going to take some of those ideas and basically drop a dead body into there or drop some kind of crime into them, and kind of work out those ideas with the backdrop and with the device of this crime in there.
Okay, certainly amazing. We're looking forward to that. Who do you consider biggest influence in the career?
Um, Law enforcement career, my biggest influence was my original partner, Chuck. He was very instrumental in my attitude towards law enforcement and my attitude towards family. As a writer, um, my biggest influence would probably be my mom, who always encouraged me to write and always encouraged me to imagine and come up with things. And we would, when I was a small kid, we would try to build our own mysteries on Sunday afternoons between movies of the week kind of things. Um, so those are the big influences in my life.
And certainly indeed. And what's the best advice you can give to anybody at this point?
Follow your dreams no matter where you are. Um, I live by the mantra that my father, my grandfather had. It's early is on time is late, and late is not acceptable. And while that works to tell deputy sheriffs to make sure that they're at their details early so that they're not missing anything, I also take that as something in life also. If you have an idea and you act on it early enough, um, you have a chance to kind of see it develop and kind of follow different paths. If you are trying to control something later on down the road when you think that it's the right time, you're gonna lose that. And if you react too late, the opportunity is gone.
And I think that was a really good points as well. Here with author Rodney Carpentier of Our Lady the Overlook here on the Mike Wagner Show. Rodney, very big thank you for your time. You've been absolutely amazing. Learned a lot. Looking forward to having soon. Keep us up to date. Keep in touch. Love to have you back. What's your website? How do people contact you? Where can people purchase or check out your book?
So my website is rlcarpentierwriter.com. You can buy my current book there. You can pre-order the second book there. Also available on Amazon. Our Lady of the Overlook or Quiet Whispers of the Overlook. You can follow me on Facebook. I think I have an Instagram. I'm not 100% sure at this time. And I have a weekly newsletter. If you sign up on my website, you can find out all sorts of different things about me on a weekly basis.
Certainly, we'll check that out as well. Once again, Rodney, a very big thank you for your time. You've been absolutely fantastic. Looking forward to having you soon. Keep us up to date. Keep in touch. Live, have you back. We wish you all best. And Rodney, you definitely have a great future ahead of you.
Thank you very much, Mike.